Good afternoon or good morning. Welcome to today's roundtable discussion, meeting the emotional needs of students and educators. My name is Maria Nuesi, and I am part of the Cognito team and will be your host and moderator today. For those of you who are not familiar with Cognito, we are a health simulation company that harnesses virtual human simulation to improve social, emotional, and physical health. And over many years, we've partnered with school districts and state agencies to empower educators and students to address difficult topics like mental health, suicide prevention, trauma, SEL, and bullying, and really with a focus on providing educators and students with a safe and private practice environment in which they can build their confidence and skills around these difficult topics. Today, we've brought together 4 district leaders from across the country to share with you the work they're doing to support their students and educators during this very difficult academic year. We've prepared a few discussion topics for you. However, we want this to be an interactive conversation, so we encourage you to submit questions throughout, and we have dedicated time at the end where we will try to answer as many questions as possible. Today I am joined by Elizabeth Lane, who is the Coordinator of Student Services for the School District of Osceola County, Florida. Also joined by Jennifer Taylor, who is the Supervisor of School Counseling and Student Services for the Alachua County Public Schools. Also joined by Jacqueline Rodriguez, who is the Coordinator of Student Support and Health Services Department for the Sacramento City Unified School District. And last but not least, Karen Haynes, who is the Director for Mental Health and Social Services for Galena Park Independent School District. Before we dive in, I want to invite each of our presenters to share a little bit about their districts and their work. So I want to turn it over first to Elizabeth.
So greetings. My name is Elizabeth Lane. I serve as the Coordinator for Student Services in Osceola County, Florida. We're located in Central Florida, right next door to Disney World. We host a diverse student population of about 70,000 students. We were formerly a ranching community, and our students run the gamut from agriculture families to those families who are employed by the hotels and restaurants in the Disney area. Our poverty levels are very high, as the pay in hotels and restaurants is very low. And, of course, right now with COVID, we're experiencing even higher poverty levels. With that goes very high mental health needs. My job involves the development and supervision of mental health services and trainings for our employees and families. We enjoy a strong collaboration with our Department of Children and Families and our community health partners.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I now want to turn it over to Jennifer.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Jennifer Taylor. I'm a Supervisor of School Counseling and Student Services for Alachua County Schools in Alachua County, Florida. We are in Gainesville, the home of the Florida Gators, and so we have a very diverse county. And we have highly educated university professors in that population, but also most of our schools are Title I schools. Gainesville itself is very suburban. We have surrounding, very rural communities that are also part of our county. My role is to support our school counselors and our school social workers, as well as our collaborations with the mental health agencies in our community. We're very fortunate to have excellent collaboration with our community agencies who help support us, as well as our students and our teachers. I work with our schools on social emotional learning and the provision of mental health services across the board. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now I'll turn it over to Jacqueline.
Hi, yes, I'm Jacqueline Rodriguez, a licensed clinical social worker. I serve as the Coordinator of Student Support and Health Services in Sacramento City Unified School District. Our district is in the city of Sacramento, the capital of California. We're in the northern part of California, and we're the 11th largest district in the state. We have a very diverse population, which is kind of represents the hallmark of Sacramento itself. Our student population is 40% Latinx, 17% Asian, 14% African American, and 18% white. About 7% of our students represent 2 or more ethnicities, and we're also a very linguistically diverse school district where our residents speak more than 51 languages. Over 70% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch and are considered socioeconomically disadvantaged, and about 20% of our students are English language learners. So many of our students face many of the challenges related to living in under-resourced urban communities, such as housing, food insecurity, underemployment, and that just leads to a lot of mobility of our students among our schools. And so all of this really just shows that our students and our families often need lots of basic needs as well as social, emotional, and mental health needs. My role in our district is overseeing and managing our mental health services and programs, so providing staff trainings, overseeing our school-based mental health professional staff, as well as developing partnerships with our community resources to help really provide that bigger picture of safety net of services for our students.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. And Karen, take it away, please. Karen, you may want to unmute yourself.
Hello?
There you are.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Karen Haynes. I'm a licensed professiongal counselor in Galena Park ISD Independent School District. My role is to support the crisis team. I lead and facilitate crisis interventions, provide support, all things crisis. I also work closely with the Senior Director for Student Support Services, who actually supervises our team, Dr. Sarita Augustine, and we also provide support to campus counselors and work closely with the Special Education Department to provide behavioral support and interventions. Our district mission is, the mission of Galena Park Independent School District is to prepare students to become productive citizens and lifelong learners. We have approximately 22,289 students. We have 15 primary schools within our district, 5 middle schools, 4 high schools, and 1 alternative school. There's a sense of community within our district. We serve a diverse population. We work very closely with our low income families to make sure that within the school system we're meeting their social, emotional, behavior, and mental health needs. We are excited to share that under the leadership of our former superintendent, Dr. Angie Williams, our new superintendent, Dr. John Moore, and the assistant superintendent for student support services, Dr. Michelle Epps, we were able to bring 2 legacy clinics into our district this school year, so we're very excited about that. We're also excited that we were able to have a new employee assistance program, so we're also looking forward to continue to support the mental health needs of our students as well as our staff. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for sharing a little bit about your work and your district as we transition into our first discussion topic. And the question I'll pose to the group is, as your district prepared for the new academic year, what steps were taken to support the students' emotional well-being? And was that approach different for meeting the needs of your educators? And I will turn it over to Elizabeth to kick us off on sharing your experience in your district.
Thank you very much. So at the end of last year, we went digital right after spring break. And so at that time, our social workers and our school psychs, our school counselors spent a lot of time touching base with our digital learners and checking on them. We realized just from that little bit of time that the need in going into this year would be much different. And of course, as summer went on, we realized that school would be very different this year. So during the summer, we brought together a team of social workers, school psychologists, and counselors from elementary and secondary to work on 2 trainings. One team worked on the mental health training, and then one team worked on social justice because we knew that both issues would affect our students. The people who had spent the last year touching base with our students were part of the team, and they put together some effective trainings that could be given to all of our school staff at the beginning of the year. During pre-planning, we combined the mental health training, which encompassed signs to look for, strategies to engage, and self-care with the cognito trauma-informed processes as a required professional development. And so we offer that during pre-planning with our teams at the schools. Actually, our social worker, psych, and counselor at the school did the presentation of the mental health, and then they introduced the cognito piece. Social justice was presented to our mental health teams, our administration, and deans, and then it's scheduled throughout the school year as a training for our school staff to be able to take. Our training encompasses all of our school staff, our bus drivers, our food service personnel, our administrators, and our district leadership are included with our teachers and our paras and our district staff.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Jennifer, can you also share with us?
Hi, yes. So our district was very concerned when we were thinking about reentry and reentering our schools about mental health overall for both our students and our educators. We ended up with about 3 weeks of professional development time for our teachers to allow them time to get used to the online systems that they would be utilizing to teach. But we also, in there, were able to incorporate time talking about mental health for students and how trauma impacts students, recognizing that a lot of our students have experienced some trauma over the last 6 months or so, whether that be from COVID or social justice, as was previously mentioned. So it's a stressful time in our community, and that impacts our students as well. So that training, we were able to utilize the cognito training around trauma-sensitive practices, and that module was very well received by our teachers and staff. And then we followed up with school-based faculty discussions where they were able to really dig a little bit into that content, really talk about signs that teachers may see if students have experienced some trauma or there are some mental health concerns, how to access help for those students. And then also we spent some time talking about their own mental health and how the traumas over the last 6 months or so have impacted them and may impact them as they begin teaching their students. So that was kind of the first prong, was providing the cognito training, and then we followed up with opportunities for additional training in trauma for those that chose to. So the cognito training was required for everybody, and then the additional training was kind of for those who wanted to know a little bit more. We're also continuing with our efforts to have all of our staff trained in youth mental health first aid. Over the summer, we were additionally able to provide some support to our counselors and social workers with some training and some evidence-based tiered supports so that they have more tools in their toolbox to work with students. Our counselors and social workers are working very hard to make sure that they're meeting the needs of students, whether they be brick and mortar or digital academy. If they're in need of counseling services, that they're able to access those services. In addition, we added a link to our school board website for parents to access so that if their students are digital academy, they don't feel connected to the school, but they're concerned about their children, they can request counseling services by completing a brief survey, and one of our district mental health specialists will reach out and help them access the services they need. So we're continuing those efforts for our students. In the next month or so, we'll be implementing a universal screener and having all teachers rate their students on both internalizing behaviors like being withdrawn, as well as externalizing behaviors like acting out. And so we'll be able to identify students who may be in need of additional support or interventions based on those screeners. In addition to worrying about our kids, of course, we're all worried about our teachers as well, and there was a lot of conversation about the stress and strain that our teachers are under and their own anxieties around their own exposure, having to care for their own families. So there's a lot of stress, not just related to school, but also their home lives. So within our trainings, we did try to really focus on them as well, make sure that we were acknowledging their own stress and anxiety. We made sure that we have sent lots of information out regarding how they can access counseling services for themselves through our employee assistance program. And our community organizations have really pulled through and have formed kind of a group, 3 of our community partners in mental health, and are providing wellness nights for our educators to join if they choose. So some of those are informative kind of trainings around anxiety and strategies they might use to help themselves, and then some are more supportive opportunities to come on and just get some support from crisis counselors. So we've tried to make sure that we were reaching out and supporting our educators while also providing them with the skills that they need to make sure that we're supporting our students.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Jacqueline, would you like to add to this topic?
Yes, thank you. I think, as similarly shared, we really recognize the need of our students and our educators. One, for our students, we're just experiencing lots of sadness, anxiety, and feeling isolated, as well as their parents. It's just feeling overwhelmed with how to meet the needs of their families as well as their children. And so we really focused over the summer, well, late part of spring and summer, about how we can find different pathways and outreach to our families. Again, kind of sharing how we have such a diverse need, and so we were using social media platforms, and we were using websites, and also handouts and newsletters that were given during lunch distributions and pickups and things like that about where families could go for basic need resources and where they can get social emotional help. We also established a virtual calming room on our district website and pushed that out through Google Classroom's website, social media platforms. But we found that to be a really successful tool of providing students and families with strategies and tools to help manage their feelings, and then also where to get help if they needed additional help. We also, starting last spring, sent out a social emotional survey to check in on students and how they were coping, and then we were able to use our school-based mental health support staff to triage and reach out to students identified as needing immediate need, and how to connect with them. And as similarly was shared, it's just really how do we help parents know where to find the help. So we also have a warm line that they could call for any kind of support services. And what we really found for our educators is they were really struggling on just how to engage their students and through the technology, as well as recognizing when students needed additional help and recognizing those signs through their virtual platforms. Because we're 100% distance learning, we're not doing any in-person at this time. I think it's also important to share that our district was a very late starting school. We're only on the 19th day of school for this new school year, so we're still learning and evolving continuously. But one thing we did develop over the summer was a guidance for teachers and school staff that really use a multi-tiered system of support of recognizing how they can support their students at a universal level, and then identifying those students, for instance, like what were the warning signs and risk factors if a student might need a suicide risk assessment, or if they might need, if we're concerned about their home safety and having to do child abuse reports and things like that, where we really wanted to structure the support for educators so they knew where to find information and where they can find our own school-based support that can help them when they're recognizing a student is struggling. So that has been very helpful. And with those universal professional development, we've used Cognito to provide the trauma-informed practice understanding, and that's been very helpful in our staff just really recognizing what our students are experiencing and how to get them the help. And so we're continuing to really develop our plan of making sure that our educators have what they need to support students, and then making sure that our school-based mental health supports, which is school social workers, school counselors, and school psychologists, have the training to provide all these supports virtually. So those are some of the things that we've been working on so far.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. And Dr. Haynes, would you like to add as well?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. As a district, we really took a deep dive into the mental health needs of our students, our educators, our parents, and the community as a whole. We recognize that a pandemic is truly a traumatic event. So we focused on cognitive trauma-informed care training. We required every district employee to have that training, and we're excited to say that this is our third year utilizing the cognitive training, which has been very beneficial and impactful to our staff, students, our educators, and the community. We are also excited to share that as a team, what we did was we looked at what resources we have within our schools, and we recognized that we had our licensed specialists in school psychology, the LSSPs. We have our social services specialists. We also partner with communities in school, so we have Victims of Crime Act crisis intervention specialists. We have communities in schools psych coordinators in our district as well, as well as counselors, campus counselors, who we have had several of them who have become licensed as licensed professional counselors, so they really are addressing the mental health needs of our students. This school year, we also hired a mental health and student support specialist. We work closely with our behavior intervention teams as we're providing care for our students. Something else that's very beneficial is our superintendent, Dr. John Moore, does a Monday morning message. And throughout his message, he acknowledges the need for mental health supports. Our former superintendent was also a former counselor, so she left a clear path of the importance of mental health needs and why we should address it. So as a school family, we are very familiar with the mental health needs and emotional support that our students need, so we focus in on it. We also have a director of school culture who focuses on social emotional learning and partner with our school counselors and our mental health intervention team. The mental health intervention team is comprised of two of our lieutenants. We have 4 licensed specialists and school psychologists. We have 3 social services specialists, 3 crisis intervention specialists, and 7 licensed professional counselors. So we have a great team working closely together to continue to provide support. We also utilize, this is our 5th year having the community collaborative, and this is our first year actually having a virtual due to the current climate of the world that we're living in. So we had a virtual community collaborative. We had over 16 agencies represented, and they shared a host of resources and how they were able to assist. We asked them to share a little bit about the agency, the services that they provide, is there a fee for service, and there were tons and tons of free services. And we had over 60 participants on that Zoom meeting, so we were excited about that. Our custodial staff, transportation, they've had an opportunity to be trained, and we're also providing support to them as well. One more thing is that we also conducted a needs assessment to just identify what are the needs of our students, what are the needs of our community, and so we took that information and looked into how we can better service the community. We came back, we're providing ongoing support groups to students, staff, parents, and just the community as a whole. So we've made that available to them free of charge if people are struggling with anything related to the pandemic, not related to the pandemic, financial support. We have licensed staff who's available and ready to support, and that has been great. Our communication department is getting a lot of information out to the community via the social media platforms. So we're working collaboratively within our district because we recognize there were a lot of people who had a lot of anxiety about returning to work. I am one of the lead crisis intervention people in our district. I'm the director of mental health and social services, as previously stated. And the thing that worked for me, I was very, very transparent with my staff, with my school family, and the community as a whole about my apprehension about returning to work physically, and I think that really helped break down some barriers. So we were in my transparency, it allowed people to see, even in being a caretaker, you can have feelings of anxiety as well. And I utilized just really just confronting my fear was what was most useful, to actually having to come in here. When I first returned to work, I kept my office door closed, and gradually I started to open my door, walking around to where I started to feel safe again. I think that will be a great approach that we'll utilize as students are returning back into the building. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Haynes. Thank you all for sharing. There are a lot of resources and strategies that you are all implementing in your district that are encouraging questions from the attendees, which we'll tackle at the end. As we transition to the next topic, there are a lot of needs that you've highlighted that both teachers and the students are in need of support. Can you share what is one highlight you've experienced so far in a sea of many challenges? What is a highlight that you can share with this group that you've encountered from the reentry plans that you've all put into place? And I know that you are all in different stages of your back to school timeline. So I'll start off with you, Jacqueline, if you can share a little bit if there are any highlights you can share with this group.
Yes, thank you. I think when we think about our students' emotional needs, one of the things we found has been very successful, and I mentioned this in a previous question, but was our virtual calming room. We have found that to be just a really great way to provide these tools and strategies that students and families can access at any time on our district website. But it's also been a great way to engage students directly. So our teachers will use it and demo it in their virtual Zoom rooms, and then they'll find favorite activities and practice them with their students. And it's also led to students being able to express what they're needing and what they're feeling. And so it's really created this really universal way to communicate like how we can develop our own strategies to practice self-care in a time when we're all feeling anxious and overwhelmed. And I think another thing I'd like to highlight, and because we've heard so much from our community that are really struggling to connect with each other and find resources, is that we are in the development phase of creating a youth mental health app for our students and families to use, again, to find a way to connect and find resources. And the other thing we're piloting, just that we'll be launching in the next week or two that we didn't use previously, is our friend-to-friend student cognito modules, so that we can really train our students and help them understand warning signs of when they need help and who they can go to for help, because we really know our students talk to each other, and so we found it's really critical that we're teaching them what to look for and then how to go seek that help for themselves or for a friend. So those are that was more than one, but those are one thing that we found is really successful and the two things that we're looking to implement this school year.
So much, Jacqueline. Elizabeth, can you also share with us a highlight so far from the school year?
Yes, thank you. We are in the 6th week of school, and we realized just out of the gate how serious our mental health needs were, especially for our digital learners. I think the highlight for me has been to see how the entire school community came together quickly to problem solve and to train and to be aware and to surround our students and our family with support. From the superintendent to the bus drivers, everyone is understanding the need and wants to do what is best for our families and students. We worked on it during the summer and we presented it during pre-planning, but then it just really became very real to us the first week of school. This collaboration has added to more resources being available. We added a button to our class link, which is our on-the-line access that students use to get to classes, and it is specifically lends itself to 2 Bitmoji classrooms, one for elementary and one for secondary, and those have music and puzzles. There's a suicide prevention with a suicide hotline number on it, and there's just lots of fun things to do in both of those classrooms that students and parents can explore together, and they can go there for SEL support. We're continually updating our mental health page on our website, and the link is provided on our parent portal, which is how our students access that information. So I think for us, it's been just really recognizing that we knew how deep the need would be, but it just became much more deeper when school actually started, and so coming together and putting things in place from top to bottom.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Karen, can you also add from your district's perspective?
I think the biggest highlight I would say in our district is just having a new superintendent walk into a pandemic. And though he's not new to the district, he's been here for many years, how he's tackled it and very graciously addressed every need that has come up. There's a lot that we're incorporating, and there's a huge emphasis on the social emotional learning aspect of our school community. The director of school culture is really work collaboratively with the counselors, the campus administrators, and district level administrators to incorporate No Place for Hate curriculum to support students' emotional needs. We're very aware of the culture and what students are dealing with, and so we're addressing all of their needs. We have also utilized virtual suicide assessments, which initially we were very concerned about. However, it has worked well. Parents have really joined forces with us. Our officers are very willing and able. We've even sent out our local officers to do wellness checks on students when there's a concern. And even in the midst of pandemic, we have school people who have been very, very willing to go out to the homes to provide support, everything from meeting the needs of families in terms of taking groceries to the home, as well as addressing the mental health needs. So those are things that we were excited about.
Thank you so much. And finally, Jennifer, can you close us out on this topic?
Sure, yes. Similarly to what Elizabeth and Karen said, I think the thing that has been most rewarding to me is to see how our staff, particularly our social workers and school counselors, have been creative, have thought outside the box, and really worked hard to figure out how to meet the needs of all of their students. So we have some students who are in our buildings, brick and mortar, and we have some students who are digital academy. So they're still attached to the school, but they're digital throughout the school day. And then we also have some students who are on an e-school platform, which is more of a traditional e-school situation. So the students are kind of out there and everywhere, and so trying to meet the needs of all of them is challenging. But the social workers, the counselors have really stepped up and figured that out. They have created their own Canvas classrooms. Our teachers are using Canvas for academics. So they have created school counseling Canvas classrooms for students to visit to get information and tips, strategies. In addition, they're working really hard to make sure that we develop classroom guidance lessons that can reach out into the Digital Academy students. And we recently have celebrated Start with Hello, the Sandy Hook Promise initiative, and heard some great things that were happening to include the Digital Academy students into those lessons as well. So they're providing counseling in person as well as through teletherapy, and just really trying hard to make sure that they're meeting the needs of all students. And that's been really rewarding. Similarly, our community agencies have also really stepped up and wrapped around our teachers and staff in particular. Their concern was our staff and wanting to help provide resources to them and make sure that they were taken care of so that they could better take care of our children. So really, again, similar to what others have said, just how everybody has really stepped forward and been willing to go the extra mile, step outside of the box, and be creative to make sure that everybody's needs were being met. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much. I love some of the ideas of the virtual calming room to the button to the class link, and again, focusing on communication and really staying tuned with what's happening on the ground. So thank you all for sharing your highlight. We'll now transition to the third discussion topic, which again is now focused on what has been an unexpected challenge you've encountered in the process of reopening the school, and how have you navigated this challenge. And I'll start off with Karen on this round.
Okay. An unexpected challenge that we've encountered is having students be so challenged within the virtual world. Parents were very challenged. We have a lot of our grandparents who are raising children, so they were really struggling. They felt they felt really frustrated as a result of the just adjusting to the virtual world. So oftentimes our students will face the barriers within the home with technology. And what we've done as a district is to support. We recognize that there were a need to provide computers, internet access. We offered hotspot, and when we ran into bumps, even with providing those things, our technology department stepped up to help students help students with their computer access within the home. If the device was having problems, they were doing troubleshooting, and they stayed the course until the device was properly working to guarantee easy access to virtual learning. We also created a technology helpline where students can call in or parents can call in to get assistance with their computers. So as a district, we've taken every effort to ensure that our students are successful while they're learning virtually. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haynes. Jacqueline, would you like to share as well what has been a challenge for you in your district?
Yes, thank you. Much as Dr. Haynes just shared, our families are really struggling with just managing the technology aspect of distance learning. I think that the digital divide has become very apparent during this time, and as I shared earlier, our school district is 70% of students and families living in poverty, and so that just creates even a higher, what we've really seen is the increased challenge for us is it's just those needs being exacerbated, and that a lot of our families are just struggling to make basic needs, to find stable housing, to have access to food. And now we just see this access to technology. So to meet those needs, our district, as was just shared, we made sure that every student had access to a Chromebook, and then we realized then it was just the access to the actual Wi-Fi and internet. So we provided hotspots. We worked with partnerships within our city to provide internet access. But even with that, we still are finding our families are just struggling with, like, how do we log on? How do we navigate a Zoom classroom? How do we help our students download their assignments? And so a lot of our mental health professionals in the school, our school social workers and school counselors, are actually doing home visit check-ins to provide, like, safe distancing, but coaching on how to just, like, navigate the laptop itself. And so I think what we see is with so many of our families maybe not even having a high literacy rate or even understanding English, we're having to really find ways around that to make sure our students are able to access their education through this virtual space. So it's taken a lot of creativity and innovation from our staff to meet those needs.
Thank you so much. Jennifer?
Yes, technology has certainly been an issue. One of the other things that has really stood out is the stress level of our teachers. So, the beginning of the year is always challenging. There was so much uncertainty at the beginning of the year regarding when we were going to reopen and how we were going to reopen. Our start date changed a couple of times. And so the anxiety and stress levels of our teachers and staff were just really high. And so we were working really hard to make sure that we were both offering them the technical information, the educator training, how to teach your class, how to use your virtual platforms. Again, we ended up with about 3 weeks of pre-planning rather than our typical 1 week of pre-planning to provide them with lots of opportunity to build those virtual classrooms. But we also wanted to make sure that we were supporting them in terms of their emotional and mental health. And so we did make sure that when we did our Cognito talks and worked with our staff, that we really spent time focusing on them, not just on how to support their students, but on how it was impacting them as well. And I have mentioned a couple of times about our community partners coming together. So we had our local crisis center, our mental health coalition, as well as some other community partners came together asking how can we support our teachers and staff. And so we were able to put together the platform where on Tuesday evenings for every week, for about 6 weeks, we were able to offer some sort of support, either strategies or just time to talk. What we recognized was that our teachers are very stressed, and by the end of the day, they weren't wanting to get on, and so our participation in those was actually much lower than we had expected. So we kind of had to come back and rethink that, because we want to make sure that they feel supported, but in a meaningful way that they're able to access and utilize. So we're working now to kind of rethink for October, as we move to October, how to bring that down to a school level where teachers may be more likely to access those supports rather than at the district level. Doing some messaging, just kind of like weekly notes, tips, strategies, how to take care of themselves, checking in, and making sure that we are acknowledging, what they're going through and how much they're giving back in order to support our students. So just finding ways to support our teachers and staff, has been one of the challenges, I think.
Absolutely, and I know many other districts can relate on that, and I can see a lot of questions about concerns around teacher burnout and the stress levels for teachers. Elizabeth, anything else you would like to add about challenges that you're encountering?
It's all of the speakers have really encompassed what we're dealing with, from the digital challenges to the depth of anxiety, concern, and exhaustion of our employees and students. I think that we expected it, but for some of us who worked all the way through the summer, it was a bit of a shock, and unfortunately, we actually had a student who completed suicide the first week, so that really brought it home to how deep the mental health needs are in our county. We are doing a lot of talking and listening to our teachers and our administrators, and putting things in place. Our mental health teams are meeting with our teachers on a regular basis. But to be honest, if you're looking for challenges, I think the level of anxiety this year is kind of like an onion. You peel away a layer, and then there's another problem right under the layer. So being able to problem solve and work with your community agencies, I think, is essential to the success of this year.
Thank you so much, and it's so sad to hear about the loss of a student already so early in the school year. But I want to use some of what you said to transition us into the next point, which is around the feedback that you are hearing from your teachers, from your parents, from your students, and how you will use that in feedback to influence adjustments or modifications to your plan through the rest of the year. And I'll start off with Jacqueline, if you can share, what are you hearing so far, and have you heard anything that is drastically going to impact your plans throughout the rest of the academic year, at least through the end of 2020?
Yeah, of course, thank you. So what we're really hearing, and kind of echoes a lot of what we kind of talked about, but really thinking about how we continue to adjust and really meet these needs, is I think overarching is this need for communication, and I think that really just speaks to how we're all experiencing feelings of anxiety and a lot of unknowns, and so then processing information and remembering it can be difficult, right? So what we're learning is the need to almost over-communicate and use different means of communication, like through newsletters, emails, but also posting things and letting people know where to find information, so that when their brains are in a calmer place to take it in, they know where to go to get it. And so we're doing that for all of our stakeholders, for parents and for staff and our students. And I think that's really what was just shared about students' needs, and we're very concerned about our students' mental health safety. So we are really providing a lot of professional development support to our staff about how to recognize those warning signs of when a student might be needing help, and then how our mental health staff can conduct those assessments. And what we're really hearing from students is this need for social connection and this increase in just sadness and anxiety. And so for that reason, And we've also recognized that teachers are so overwhelmed with trying to meet that need. So we've really worked a lot with, I think our recent pivot is that our school-based mental health staff are pushing in to our teachers' classrooms virtually and providing mindfulness lessons. They're providing other various social-emotional activities so that even the teachers can take a break, because then they can let the mental health professional host. Providing breakout times for students to come and socialize. So like during what might be a recess or lunch break, we're holding drop-in visits, like almost like a recess time where there's like structured activities where students can engage with each other and have a social interaction virtually is another thing we've learned. And we're also trying to do the same for parents, so creating these parent drop-in groups and trying to find the best time where they can come get resources, but also recording these and posting them to our website, our district website, so that we have a library of resources on topics that parents need. So that's just highlighting a couple of the ways we're pivoting, but again, we're only in day 19, and so we're kind of constantly learning and trying to pivot and apply some of these new things that we're learning.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Over-communication seems to be a key strategy for success here. Dr. Haynes, what would you like to add?
Well, I would just kind of echo some of what's already been said. And what we've gotten is some positive feedback about the over-communication. There's a lot of information being shared via social media platforms, our web pages. So we provided a lot of resources. The counselors and our mental health and crisis response team have been readily available to provide support to students. On the not so positive side, students are missing the social interaction. They're ready to return to school. Even the students who are not fond of school didn't realize how much they would miss school. So it's kind of, that double-edged sword. It's like, okay, I didn't care about going to school, but school provided a safe place and a lot of social and emotional support. So we're hearing that students are ready to come back to school. So, and even though there's some anxiety there for some students, we feel like we put a lot of supports in place that will help to alleviate the anxiety and show them that, hey, even though they may feel anxious, we have staff that are anxious, but we're working very diligently to ensure that they're safety, and we keep safety as the number one concern, and we are going to address and make sure that school is safe for you to return. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haynes. Elizabeth, what would you like to add here?
One of the things that we've done is that we have a grant to support mental wellness in our community. So we took some of the information, like everybody else, we're hearing the parents just want more and more and more information and resources. So we are working with the grant to utilize the social marketing. They have done some professional videos of our social workers and our school psychologists and people in our community to talk about how to cope. And so we really have tried to flood social marketing, Facebook, Twitter, all of those areas, plus our website, and plus their website, and really did a collaboration in the community. So you pretty much have to not be on social marketing at all not to catch one of the videos on mental wellness. And I just want to echo just the oversharing just as many times as you can get it out there. I think you're going to find somebody who hadn't seen it before.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And finally, Jennifer.
Yeah, very similarly, both oversharing, but also giving many, many opportunities and different choices as far as when people will be able to access those supports. So we have put out many, many trainings, whether they be mental health or virtual learning trainings for teachers, but tried to offer them at very flexible times, record them, as was mentioned, so that they can access them later, so that people are feeling like they have some control when they access and how they access training that they need. And that applies to our social emotional training as well. Also extends to our parents. So trying to put a lot of information out there to them, making sure they're aware of how they can access counseling services for their students, what services are available in their schools, that we do have counselors and social workers in our schools to support them and to support their students, and providing trainings and workshops for them to attend, again, at varying times with flexibility. I think the two keywords. First is communication, we talked about. The second keyword for this year is flexibility. And as the year progresses, things are going to be changing, and we'll just pivot as much as we can and do what we can to continue to meet the needs of our teachers, our staff, and our families.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And we are approaching the Q&A portion, so again, I encourage everybody to continue to submit your questions. We'll now transition to just the last discussion topic that we have incorporated, which all of you have mentioned throughout your conversation, how you've used Cognito in different ways. I would just be curious, given all of the different initiatives that you are currently rolling out in your district and the already long list of items that teachers need to address during their working hours, how did you incorporate the Cognito training into your reentry plan, and what was your goal in implementing this tool into that framework? And Elizabeth, I'll start off with you.
Thank you. So we used the Cognito trauma-informed processes this year. Last year we had used the mental health module, and so our staff was already familiar with the avatars and the interaction part of Cognito. So what we did is we had it introduced by our school teams of our mental health persons, and then staff went on and completed it, and then there was a meeting afterwards to talk about what they had learned. And we really feel like this brings it home to our staff of what they need to be aware of and why sometimes behavior is not about behavior, but it's about what's going on in somebody's life. I think it also helps our staff kind of work through some of their issues when they go through the Cognito simulations. So we've had very, very positive responses from this year's launch.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Jennifer?
Yes, very similar to Elizabeth. Here in Florida, we're both here. The state pushed out last year for us access to the Cognito at-risk mental health training. And so our teachers participated in that last year. We did have a lot of very positive feedback. They really enjoy the platform because it is interactive, and many of them chose to do multiple levels rather than just one. So this year we were really looking for more in terms of supporting our teachers and helping them understand how trauma impacts children. And we've done trauma training throughout the last probably 5 years, but this was an opportunity to make sure that all of our teachers and our staff were provided with the knowledge and skills around recognizing how trauma impacts students, and that when they see those behaviors coming back to school, some of them may stem from having experienced some trauma over the long break that we had. So our teachers, during pre-planning, did the modules on their own independently, and then they came together as school teams and faculty and discussed those trainings, what they got from it. We really embedded in those trainings more information about trauma and how it impacts students, how to take care of themselves and recognize it in themselves as educators, as well as how to access supports for students and what was available, so that if they have identified students in need, how can they get help for them? And so that happened as well during pre-planning week. And then we created some other trainings for those that wanted to take it a little bit further and get more information, and we provided those on more of an optional basis. But just as Elizabeth said, our teachers and staff really enjoy the Cognito module. I've had multiple people unsolicited come up to me and say, that was kind of fun. So they really enjoy the interactive module as a different form of training, I think.
Thank you, Jennifer. And as we approach time, I just want to invite Jacqueline, Karen, any additional comments you'd like to share that you didn't get a chance to cover before about how you rolled this out, or the benefits or impact you're seeing in your community?
Yeah, this is Jacqueline. I just think what I would add, very ssimilar to Elizabeth and Jennifer, I think the only thing I would add that we're doing differently right now is we also are implementing the Resilient Together cognito module. We do know that a lot of our school communities have experienced just loss of family members, some due to COVID, but also just because of a lot of the circumstances our families live in. And so this Resilient Together and helping our administrators know how to help their staff deal with loss and help our families deal with loss has been very helpful and well received. So we're doing that module in addition to the trauma-informed practice module.
And this is Karen. I just wanted to add or reiterate some of the things that I've said is that we made it mandatory for all of our district staff to participate and complete the cognito simulations. And our ultimate goal was to become a trauma-informed care district because we recognize that the quote by Jane Evans, the children who need the most love will always ask for it in the most unloving ways. And so as children return from a pandemic, we recognize ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, causes behaviors that may not always be positive. We anticipate seeing a lot of negative behaviors, so we want to be sure that staff were properly trained and prepared to recognize what the cause of the behavior and what is needed is love and kindness versus discipline. So we utilize Cognito to help us with that approach, and we feel like we've accomplished our goal. And so we're very grateful for our partnership with Cognito. We look forward to a very successful school year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your answers and your comments. We are now going to transition over to the last couple of minutes into the Q&A portion. So again, there are a lot of questions we've received. We'll try to get through as many as possible. And as we go into the Q&A portion, if anyone is, I'm going to launch a poll question. If anyone is interested in learning more information about the Cognito simulations that were discussed today, please feel free to answer the poll question, and we can always reach out to you with additional information. I'm going to start with the first question that has come up quite often throughout the discussion, which is about educators, and how often are you all checking in with your teachers and staff to check on their well-being and see if they are in any additional need? Jennifer, can you start us off and just share how frequently you're checking in with your teachers and staff?
Sure. I think that being at the district level and having, all of our schools, 40 schools that we serve, we really count on our school-based administrators and mental health staff to do that checking in. Our administrators are very well aware and trained to be able to help recognize when teachers may be feeling extra stress, and they are checking in with them regularly. I think we've had certainly an increase this year in administrators and mental health staff, school counselors, social workers reaching out for help on how to access more support for teachers in particular who are struggling. So I think at the district level for us, it's providing that information, the support and the training to our school-based teams who are then reaching out and supporting our teachers and staff on a regular basis. They're seeing them daily, they're doing walkthroughs, they're checking in, they're putting positive messages out there, and they're able to do that on a much more regular basis and then utilize us to help provide extra supports.
Thank you so much. Any additional comments from our other panelists?
This is Elizabeth. I just want to say that in our district, we, as I'm sure in others, we recognize, though, that comes from the top down. So our superintendent and her leadership team are frequently at the schools, going through the classes, talking to the teachers, but also talking to the administrators. So the administrators model what they receive from leadership, and so that kind of has helped the process also.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I know that we are at the hour, so I'm going to stop here with questions. Again, we can, if you have any additional questions, we'll try to reach out to you and address those individually. I want to thank our panelists so much for sharing with us. I hope that everyone who joined found all of their insights valuable and that they can apply this into their districts. And to all of you who joined us today for the last hour, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. We wish you the best in your academic year, and let us know if there's anything we can do for you. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.